Hello, I'm Elizabeth Dowker, and I'll be presenting Rock Creek and Spring, Washington, D.C. by Unichi HIRATSUKA, a member of Subtheme 2, Revealing Emergence. First, some information about the artist. Unichi HIRATSUKA was born in 1895 in Japan, but he moved to Washington, D.C. in 1962. He spent the next 33 years of his professional career teaching art throughout the United States. He lived in Washington, D.C. for a long period of his time within the United States, and he served as a teacher and artist within the city. He is a prominent leader of the Sosaku Hanga movement, which I'm going to detail. The movement is called, roughly translated to creative prints. It was an early 20th century Japanese artistic movement that centered on wood carving. A picture of the artist is shown with him creating a work. This Sosaku Hanga movement shifted the commercialized process and popular image to a process focused on the artist's individual creativity and personal expression. Instead of the process being divided between different individuals, with each person doing one part, the complete process was undertaken by the artist, completely shifting the entire way that wood carving was completed. This movement was reflective of both Japanese and Western influences, so together it created a melding of styles. I'm going to review a couple of his pieces to provide context before getting into Rock Creek and Spring, Washington, D.C. First, I'd like to address his Washington, D.C. series. Unichi HIRATSUKA was commissioned by 3 standing presidents to carve woodblock carvings of national monuments. 3 are pictured here, and they reflect different expressions of the artist's individuality. First, the Washington Monument on the left was created in 1964. As we can see here, there's a plane that is set upon the paper with very heavy lines depicting the very top of the Washington Monument, with a little bit of the natural context denoted by the branch above. Second, in the center is a Lincoln Memorial, so there's more of a focus on linearity, horizontal and vertical lines divide and structure the scene with buildings. And there's also this more curvilinear elements of the natural landscape surrounding it. And then third, on the right, is depicted the Library of Congress, Washington, D.C., 1966. So all of these pieces that I am presenting on the screen are before Rock Creek and Spring. And the Library of Congress also depicts a perspective view of the building from far off, with a contextualization of the natural landscape, as well as a full depiction of the buildings. So I believe that the Washington, D.C. series and his commission by 3 different presidents indicates the value that was placed upon Unichi HIRATSUKA's work and his contributions to the American learning and artistic scene. Other works from DC further help to contextualize the artist's work, and specifically his interaction with the natural sphere of DC. So there's Rock Creek in Montrose Park, Washington, D.C. This is the Showa period, 1962, now housed at the Harvard Art Museum. This piece is characterized by a strong linearity and the depiction of movement within the scene through lines. So all these pieces are black and white. While he did have color pieces, all of his Washington, D.C. series was in black and white. And I think that as we can see in Rock Creek and Montrose Park, the concentration on massing of the rocks, the contrast between light and dark that's created through solid and these moving elements of water versus rock, earth, and this permeable transient element of water really help to divide and structure the scene. So while while the individual scene is not necessarily immediately available, it arises once we come to understand the natural landscape. In the center is just a still image of Rock Creek Park. I included that to create reflection and see the kind of natural scene that the artist was drawing from when creating the work in question. And then additionally, I included Key Bridge, which was created in 1966. It's now housed at the Smithsonian Art Museum. And so that also depicts a different depiction of the natural and built landscape in Washington, D.C. As we can see, there's the Potomac River, with also the bridge structured above it, creating a division, a horizontal division, whereas the building on the left creates a vertical division, framing the natural elements. And so this is a very highly figural depiction and representational one, where we can clearly see kind of a balance between his works in contrast to an image like Rock Creek and Montrose Park, which really relies upon the viewer's active looking at the piece to better understand what exactly the artist is depicting. So let's look at Rock Creek and Spring. So the image owned by the Muscarelle Museum of Art, and that group 2 included within our sub-theme, is Rock Creek and Spring, Washington, D.C., 1968, and it's a woodblock print. So this is building upon the material that Unichi HIRATSUKA was working within of using woodblock prints. As we can see, like Rock Creek and Montrose Park, it also is structured upon the linear blocking and contrast between light and dark lines. And it also incorporates active looking to, as our sub-theme identifies, reveal the natural landscape. So as you can see within the artist oeuvre, there's more of representational depiction in all of his work. However, scenes of Washington, D.C. are more easily recognizable when they include buildings. For his natural pieces like this one, it takes a while to look through this piece, so let's examine it together. The main body of the image is structured around these horizontal lines that are both jagged and smooth. Some are long, others are short. They move in and out, and they interact with one another. So together, when we recognize that this is a body of water, we see that there are ripples in the water, specifically in like this area or towards the upper center or towards the lower bottom, that suggest a completely different landscape underneath this Rock Creek Spring. So what we can't see influences what we do see, yet through close looking, we have to discover that this is a landscape, because immediately it does not appear as such. Rather, it seems just like kind of this contrast between the dark banks and the light water. And so our sub-theme group chose Rock Creek and Spring because it typifies the movement, the artist's work, and that also it requires close looking to understand the piece better. So what immediately looks like just a linear combination of elements comes to be recognized as this highly complex landscape that incorporates the artist's themes and working. Let's look to the context and importance of Rock Creek and Spring, Washington, D.C. As part of a longer series of work in Washington, D.C., recognizing locally significant places. It demonstrates principles of woodblock art in the Sosako Hongo movement, focusing on the artist's entire creative process and individual expression. And then additionally, within the revealing emergence sub-theme, there's a focus on line work, partnering of lines to create forms, focus on nature that first appears abstract, then comes into focus. And fourth, the piece makes more sense in the context of HIRATSUKA's oeuvre. We structured this within our exhibition to create kind of a visual break between some of our larger, bolder pieces towards the beginning and end of our exhibition, and then also help to draw out some of are our goals of close looking, understanding how what initially appears chaotic becomes intentional upon close looking, and it also just and partners with our ideas of incorporating the natural landscape through different visual depictions. Thank you.